can the police section you under the Mental Health Act? Well, the answer to that is technically they can't, but they can restrain you and forcibly take you against your will to a place where you can be assessed under the Mental Health Act by other professionals. So what I'm talking about is a section 136. So if the police find you in a public place and worried that you're acutely mentally unwell, so for example, you're responding to voices, you're acting in a very bizarre manner, you're making statements that sound very paranoid, like you believe, I don't know, aliens are trying to kill you, or that, you know, the FBI following you, for example, then they can take you to a place of safety. So 136 is any public place. A section 135 means they can come into your house and remove you forcibly from your house legally, but they have to get permission from a magistrate to do that in the first place. So it's a bit like the US system of needing a warrant from a judge first. Now, a place of safety technically could be a police station or it could be a hospital, but from my clinical experience as a forensic psychiatrist, it's almost always a hospital. So sometimes it's in a busy A&E department, which is not ideal for a psychotic paranoid patient to be in. Or it could be in more modern times, it can be in a section 136 suite, which is like a special annex, if you like, on a psychiatric unit, which is designed for these kinds of assessments. Another common presentation might be if you're suicidal. So if the police catch you about to jump off a bridge or they find you hanging yourself, that would be a very typical reason to bring somebody in on a section 136. So as I said, the police's action isn't technically sectioning you, so they're not part of the decision-making process about whether you need to go into a psychiatric hospital. They just have the power to take you to that place of safety. Once you're there, that section can hold you temporarily for 36 hours, by which time everybody else, all the other professionals, have to get their shit together to do a formal assessment to section you for a longer period of time. That period of time depends. Section 2, 28 days, section 3, 6 months, but that's a whole other video. Why 36 hours? Why would it take that long? It might be hard to find the staff. So you need 2 independent psychiatrists, such as myself, and then you need a senior social worker known as an AMP, approved mental health practitioner. Generally, there's 1 psychiatrist on call, so they will be there kind of ready for any people brought in by the police, but the AMP has to find the other independent psychiatrist, and that can take sometimes hours, even half a day, even a day, that I've seen in my experience. Now, it's really important to stress, and I hope you believe me, that these people are all independent. So the policeman doesn't know the psychiatrist and the psychiatrists don't know each other. I mean, they may have met, they may have even have worked together, but they can't be working together, in cahoots. And that's to make the whole process kind of objective and fair, if that makes sense. Okay, just to kind of illustrate everything I'm talking about, I'm going to give you some very quick examples of cases that I've seen. First of all, let's talk about when section 136 hasn't been used appropriately. And maybe that's a bit harsh. I'm not saying that the policeman intentionally did anything wrong, but they perhaps brought a patient in the wrong circumstances. It's not their fault. They're not mental health professionals. They did what they thought was the best thing to do at the time. So one that really stands out in my mind was when I was working at University College London, UCL Hospital, and a policeman brought in a man who was basically an alcoholic, always got drunk, always caused troubles, would do public damage, smash things up, and he would often threaten suicide. But he was only threatening suicide to try and get out of trouble from being arrested. He clearly wasn't suicidal. I had to do the assessment. It was very obvious that there was no psychiatric issues there. There were criminal issues, no alcohol issues, but there was nothing that needed psychiatric services at that point. Another similar example that was a few years later was somebody who was brought in with a drug-induced psychosis. So he was muttering to himself. He was smashing telephone boxes with a baseball bat because he had these like delusional beliefs about these ninja. It wasn't necessary to section him was because it was a drug-induced psychosis. So he'd been smoking crack. Kids, for this reason, I do not recommend crack. Became psychotic, but it wore off very quickly. So by the time he was assessed, he was sober, regretful. Just to put it in perspective, a time where I have recently seen it being used effectively is when police officers brought in a man who was psychotic, he was paranoid, he had an incorrect belief that his next door neighbour was a paedophile. There's absolutely no evidence for this. It was a paranoid delusion. He'd been hearing voices telling him about this man leading a paedophile ring. So he started threatening this person, threatening to burn down his home. That person called the police very reasonably. The police brought him in. We had a full psychiatric assessment. We didn't know this at the time, but he actually had a long history of schizophrenia, and his experiences, his delusions were very much in keeping with this diagnosis. But we found that out later because his home area where the medical records came from was miles away. I hope that was interesting and informative. My name is Dr. Sohom Das. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders for a living so that you don't have to. Feel free to call me the ominous Sohominous. So this video is just a very quick one that I pieced together. It's not scripted. It's just to give you a little bit of information. If you're interested in this kind of thing, as in true crime or mental health or the crossover, you should check out my longer, more detailed, deep dive videos. They come out on a Tuesday and a Friday at 6 p.m. They're a bit more scripted, a bit more organized, properly professionally edited. Give you some examples. I've recently done a video on Catherine Knight, who is the first Australian woman to be given a full-term life sentence, so she'll never leave prison because she killed and decapitated her husband and tried to feed his head to his children. I kid you not. I've done another video, less about crime, more about psychiatry, which is about autism. So why is autism diagnosed and what's the dangers of this? And another recent one that I did was with my man Sean Atwood. I was on his channel and I was talking about a specific case of a soldier who developed post-traumatic stress disorder, and that led him to offending. So if you're interested in any of those kinds of things, then you should definitely go chiggity check out my channel, A Psych for Sore Minds. I implore you to subscribe because not only does it help me out immeasurably, we know it's something that needs a little bit of work. Okay, stay euthymic. I hope to see you in my channel, but whatever happens, do not forget, I love you.